Let's be honest, most men don't realize they're losing power in a relationship until it's already gone. One day, she's deeply into you, chasing your attention, respecting your opinion, wanting to be around you. Then slowly things shift. You start feeling like you're walking on eggshells. She gets distant. You find yourself doing more, giving more, explaining more, while she gives less and seems perfectly fine about it. What happened? That's what we're talking about today. How men lose power in a relationship without even noticing. Here's the truth. A woman doesn't take your power. You hand it over. Not in one big moment, but in small, subtle ways over time. It happens when you start prioritizing her emotions over your standards, when you stop saying no because you don't want to upset her, when you start chasing reassurance instead of being grounded in who you are. Power in relationships isn't about dominance. It's about influence, respect, and presence. And once a man starts living to please instead of to lead, that power fades. See, most men are taught to be good guys, to keep peace, to avoid conflict. But what they're not told is that this very mindset can kill attraction and destroy balance in a relationship. Because a woman doesn't fall for a man who always agrees. She falls for a man who stands on his own feet. And when she senses that he's lost that edge, that quiet confidence, her respect begins to fade. And once respect goes, everything else starts to crumble. So today, we're going to break this down, piece by piece. You'll see exactly where men go wrong, how those small habits drain their influence, and what to do to regain control, not through games or manipulation, but through self-awareness and strength. Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, this is where we talk honestly about modern relationships, female psychology, and what really makes attraction last. 1. When you start seeking her approval instead of respect. This is where most men lose power, not because they're weak, but because they confuse approval with connection. You want peace, closeness, affection, so you start doing things to make her happy, to get a positive reaction. You think, if she smiles, if she compliments me, if she seems pleased with me, that means everything's fine. But what you don't realize is that once you start chasing approval, you've already started slipping out of your masculine frame. Approval seeking is subtle. It looks like checking your phone too often to see if she replied. It looks like apologizing for things you didn't even do wrong, just to avoid tension. It's when you start second-guessing what you say, because you don't want to upset her. You're not leading, you're performing. You're no longer being yourself. You're being who you think she wants you to be. And that's the exact moment she starts feeling like she can't trust your strength. Let me paint it for you. A man starts dating a woman who's into him. She admires his calm confidence, his independence, his focus. But over time, as he gets emotionally attached, he starts trying too hard. He texts more often, cancels plans to see her, compliments her excessively. At first, she enjoys the attention. But soon, something shifts. She starts pulling away. Why? Because the man who once led with quiet confidence is now looking to her for emotional validation. He's lost that edge that made her feel drawn to him. Here's the thing. Women can sense when a man is living for their approval. It changes the dynamic instantly. Instead of being the man she respects, you become the man who needs her reassurance. And once that happens, her attraction starts to fade, not because she's cruel, but because biologically, women are wired to be drawn to men who stand firm in who they are. 2. Losing your edge by overinvesting. Emotional connection is important in any relationship, but when a man overinvests emotionally too early or too deeply, he often ends up losing his balance and his power. This doesn't mean you shouldn't care. It means that when your emotional state starts depending on how she feels or behaves, you've handed over control of your peace. And once that happens, you start reacting instead of leading. Overinvesting happens slowly. You start thinking about her all day, wondering what she's doing, how she feels about you, or whether she's still as interested as before. You put her at the center of your life, and she feels it. The more energy you pour into her, the less mystery and individuality you have. What once made you attractive, your focus, your independence, your drive, begins to fade. Women are drawn to men who have direction and purpose, but when your emotions become tied up in her approval or attention, that direction disappears. Here's the reality. When you overinvest emotionally, you start seeing the relationship as something you have to protect rather than something you naturally contribute to. You become overly careful with what you say. You avoid conflict because you're scared of losing her. You interpret every small change in her tone or body language as a sign that something's wrong. That kind of energy doesn't make a woman feel safe. It makes her feel pressure. The irony is that the more emotionally dependent you become, the less emotionally attractive you appear. Women are naturally drawn to men who can be emotionally present, but not emotionally fragile. A man who feels deeply but still stays grounded earns a woman's respect. A man who gets lost in his emotions and loses himself in the process, loses her respect, and eventually her attraction. So, what's the balance? It's learning to stay emotionally open, but never emotionally needy. You care about her, but you don't make her your emotional anchor. You can be loving, but you still have your own center. Your goals, your values, your self-respect. 3. Becoming predictable and too available. One of the fastest ways a man loses power in a relationship is by becoming predictable. When a woman feels like she knows exactly what you're going to say, do, or feel every time, the spark fades. She stops wondering about you. She stops being curious, and without curiosity, there's no mystery, and without mystery, there's no attraction. Now, don't confuse predictability with consistency. Consistency builds trust. Predictability kills excitement. Being reliable means she knows you're solid. She can depend on your word, your character, your effort. But being predictable means you've become routine, robotic, and overly available. You respond instantly to every text. You never make her wait. You cancel your own plans just to fit into hers. You're always there. And ironically, that makes her stop valuing your presence. People naturally crave what they can't easily have. When something feels rare or uncertain, it feels exciting and worth pursuing. That's human psychology. So when you're too available, when you always say yes, when you stop having your own life, you remove that natural tension that keeps attraction alive. A woman begins to feel like she has all of you on demand. And once she feels that way, she doesn't chase anymore. When you were first dating, she probably admired how focused and independent you were. You had your own schedule, your own energy, your own rhythm. She had to fit into your life. But over time, many men flip the script. They start fitting into hers. They start thinking, if I just give her more of me, she'll appreciate me more. But that's not how attraction works. The more accessible you become, the less value your attention holds. Maintaining your edge means keeping a sense of unpredictability, not by playing games, but by keeping your life full. Continue doing what drives you. Keep your hobbies, your mission, your friendships, your gym time. Don't text back instantly every time. Don't drop everything for her. Not because you're trying to manipulate her, but because you genuinely have a life that matters beyond her. 4. Letting her emotions control your reactions. This is another subtle but powerful way men lose control in relationships, when they allow a woman's emotions to dictate how they act, think, and feel. It's easy to fall into this trap, especially if you care about her. You see her upset, distant, or moody, and your instinct is to fix it. You adjust your tone, you change your plans, You walk on eggshells just to keep her from getting upset. But what you don't realize is that every time you react to her emotions, instead of staying grounded, you hand over your power. Women naturally experience emotions more intensely and more frequently than men. That's not a bad thing. It's part of what makes them emotionally intuitive. But when a man doesn't know how to stay calm in the middle of that emotional storm, he becomes reactive. And once you're reactive, you're no longer leading the energy. You're following it. Let's break this down. When she's angry, you get defensive. When she's distant, you panic and start chasing. When she's cold, you overcompensate to make her warm again. All of those reactions tell her one thing, that she controls your emotional state. And the moment she senses that, even subconsciously, her respect for you starts to decline. The truth is, women test men emotionally, not always intentionally, but instinctively. It's how they measure a man's strength. When she sees you stay calm when she's emotional, she feels secure. But when she sees you get emotional just because she is, she feels like she can't rely on your strength. A powerful man doesn't absorb a woman's emotions. He holds space for them. He listens, stays grounded, and doesn't take it personally. That doesn't mean you have to be cold or distant. It means you remain steady. You're not trying to fix her mood. You're allowing her to express it while staying true to your own center. When you master this, everything changes. She feels safe around you. She trusts you more. She sees you as a man she can lean on, not one she can sway with a single mood swing. You maintain your emotional frame, and that frame is what defines your power. So the next time she's upset, don't rush to fix it or mirror her energy. Just breathe, stay calm, and respond with clarity. Remember, your emotions are your responsibility, not hers. The man who controls his reactions controls the dynamic. 5. Trying to fix the relationship instead of leading it. When things start going wrong in a relationship, a lot of men immediately switch into fix-it mode. They start analyzing what went wrong, reading articles, watching videos, asking friends for advice, all in an attempt to patch things up and get the relationship back to how it used to be. It comes from a good place, but the problem is this. When a man is focused on fixing the relationship, he's often operating from fear, not strength. And that fear makes him lose authority in the dynamic. You can't fix attraction with logic. You can't talk a woman back into respecting you. Yet many men try. They write long texts explaining their feelings, apologize for things they didn't do, or make promises to change just to keep the relationship from falling apart. But when a woman feels that your entire focus is on fixing her feelings or saving the relationship, she loses respect. Because what she really wants isn't a man who reacts to her distance. She wants a man who leads through it. Imagine this. Things between you and your girlfriend have been tense. She's been distant, colder, and not as affectionate. You feel the shift, and it eats at you. You try to talk about it. She pulls away even more. You send a long message explaining how you feel, and she replies with something short like, "I just need space." Now you're panicking, replaying everything you might have done wrong. You tell yourself, if I can just fix this, everything will go back to normal. But the harder you try, the more she disconnects. Here's the truth. When a woman pulls away, she's not always looking for you to fix it. Often, she's testing whether you'll stay centered when things feel uncertain. She wants to see if you still know who you are without her validation. The more desperate you become to repair things, the more you signal that your emotional world depends on her cooperation. And that kills attraction instantly. Leadership in a relationship isn't about control. It's about direction. When problems arise, a man with power doesn't chase. He observes, adjusts, and decides what kind of behavior he's willing to accept. He addresses issues calmly, but he doesn't beg for peace. He stays composed, communicates clearly, and stands by his standards. That steadiness reminds her why she respected him in the first place. So don't fix the relationship, lead it. That means staying emotionally balanced, setting boundaries, and knowing when to pull back. Because when you stop trying to fix her emotions and start living by your principles again, she feels your strength. And that's what reignites respect and attraction. 6. Forgetting who you were before the relationship. This is one of the most common and most damaging ways men lose power in relationships. They forget who they were before she came into their life. The confident, independent man who had goals, focus, and purpose starts to fade. Slowly, his life begins revolving around her. Her schedule, her moods, her needs, her plans. Without even realizing it, he stops being the man she was originally drawn to. Before the relationship, you had your own rhythm. You had things that made you feel alive. Your work, your gym routine, your hobbies, your ambitions. That's what gave you presence and energy. That's what made her see you as a man with direction. But once you start putting her at the center of your world, that energy dies out. You're no longer leading your life. You're waiting for her to decide how it should feel. Here's the irony. Most men do this because they care. They want to make her happy, to show that she's important. But the more you make her your focus, the more she subconsciously starts to lose interest. Why? Because women are drawn to men who have something bigger driving them than just the relationship. She fell for your energy, your purpose, your passion, not your dependence. When you lose your identity in a relationship, everything becomes about her approval. You stop chasing your dreams because you're scared it'll create distance. You stop spending time with your friends because you don't want her to feel ignored. You stop working on yourself because you already got the girl. But here's the truth. Once you stop growing, she starts outgrowing you. Power in a relationship comes from balance, being connected to her while still being deeply connected to yourself. You need to keep your individuality alive. Continue doing the things that make you feel confident, creative, and fulfilled. Keep your standards, your routines, and your boundaries intact. When a woman sees that you're still evolving, still striving, still living with purpose, she feels proud to be with you. That's when she invests more, respects you more, and trusts your leadership. But when she feels like you've lost your spark and replaced your identity with hers, she starts to pull away. Not because she wants to, but because her instincts tell her she can't follow a man who's lost his own direction. So never forget who you were before the relationship. That version of you, focused, grounded, and full of drive, is exactly what attracted her in the first place. Stay connected to him, and you'll never lose your power. 7. When you stop being the challenge. She fell for every woman is drawn to a man who feels like a challenge, not in a toxic, game-playing way, but in the sense that he's a man who can't be easily won over, impressed, or controlled. When a man has self-respect, standards, and emotional stability, she feels she has to earn his attention. That's what keeps her invested. But when that same man starts giving her everything too easily, his time, his energy, his attention, his forgiveness, he stops being the challenge she fell for. And that's when the power shifts. Attraction lives in tension. It's that delicate balance between comfort and uncertainty, between closeness and independence. When a man stops being a challenge, that tension disappears. He becomes predictable, overly accommodating, and too emotionally available. She stops wondering if she's still winning him, because she already has him, no matter what she does. And once she feels that security without effort, the respect starts to fade. Here's the harsh truth. Women don't want a man they can control emotionally. They might think they do for a while, but deep down, they crave a man who keeps them on their toes, someone whose approval must be earned, not assumed. When she feels like no matter how she acts, you'll always be there, always forgive, always chase, she stops valuing your presence. Now, this doesn't mean you need to play mind games or act cold. The challenge isn't about manipulation. It's about standards. It's about showing that your love and attention come with boundaries. You don't reward disrespect with affection. You don't chase after silence. You don't explain yourself when she's testing your patience. You simply hold your ground. That quiet strength is what makes her feel both safe and intrigued. Constructive truth. Here. Many men kill attraction by trying to be too nice. They confuse kindness with weakness. But women can tell the difference. A nice man who lacks boundaries loses power. A kind man who respects himself keeps it. The difference is self-worth. If you want to keep her respect, stay a challenge. That means keeping your life full, keeping your focus sharp, and never letting your emotions be dictated by hers. Stay unpredictable in the best way, by growing, evolving, and living with purpose. Here's the truth. In every relationship, power isn't about control. It's about respect, balance, and self-worth. Most men don't lose power because women take it. They lose it because they stop being the men they were before the relationship began. They start chasing comfort, validation, and peace instead of standing firm in their purpose. And that slow shift, that quiet surrender, is what makes her lose respect, not love. Think about it. Attraction fades the moment a woman realizes she can predict your every move, influence your emotions, and take your attention for granted. The most magnetic men are the ones who stay calm, grounded, and focused no matter what's happening around them. That steadiness, not charm, not looks, not money, is what makes women respect and desire them long term. Here's a controversial truth. The more power you give up to please her, the less she'll actually appreciate you. Because women don't fall in love with submission, they fall in love with strength. The kind that doesn't have to prove itself, but simply is. So, if you've recognized yourself in any of these patterns, don't beat yourself up. Every man slips at some point. What matters is that you wake up to it, reconnect with your purpose, re-establish your standards, and take back your center. That's how you regain respect, not just from her, but from yourself. Now I want to hear from you. Which part of this hit you hardest? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll be there to engage with you personally.